Hello, everybody. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. I'm actually really starting to enjoy these live streams. I'm kind of in the flow of this football thing I've got going on. I think that actually debunking this video is kind of entertaining. Hello, everybody. All right, and it seems like the audio is fine too. There's people in the chat, and sometimes there'll be more people, sometimes there'll be fewer people. At the end of the day, I've always said, and I do maintain this is not so much about trying to get those big views. It's not about becoming beast games or whatever it is. This is about just existing and being content and having fun with those who are here. But if whoever's here, that's fine, and that's how it is. And we're having a gay old time, and that's what I'm about. That's what I'm always going to be about. I'm going to keep it real. Even if I do become, even if I do hit that cool 1 billion subscribers for my gaming channel, I'm still always going to be about my beloved York City. All right, so we're going to be playing the Bristol Rovers and listening to this video. So let's jump in. If you don't remember, where we're at right now is this guy is recounting a sad story about a guy who basically had some research was happening. It was not good research to be doing to kids, and from that there was a controversy. I must admit, I have this weird sense that we've accidentally... Oh, no, okay, no, I think we're fine. We played 5 matches. That seems right. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the second live stream, we actually, for some reason, it must not have saved properly, so I basically ended up playing all the same matches twice, which was annoying. Anyway, let's start watching the video. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to have too much to say at the beginning, just because it's going to be this sad story about this guy who apparently lived a sad life, and that sucks, but obviously it's not an argument for why trans identities are valid.
Everybody else, the younger sister recalled. He even ate his lunch in the boys' bathroom for 3 years of his high school career, if you want to call it that.
In 2003, he died by suicide.
Would you just talk to us for a second about your therapy with the patient named Craig?
It's published.
We've interviewed Craig's family recently. They say that the therapy you did with him as a child led directly to his suicide as an adult. What do you say about that?
I didn't know that. That's too bad.
You're not aware of his suicide?
No.
What do you say to the family if they say that the therapy that you did with him as a child led to his suicide as an adult?
Oh. Well, I think scientifically that would be inaccurate.
But a psychiatrist who followed up with Kirk when he was 18, Dr. Richard Green, wrote that Kirk told him he'd tried to kill himself the year before because he didn't, quote, want to grow up to be gay.
I want to remind you, we still use these studies.
I will say, at the end of the day, there is a degree to which you can't always say just because something happened after something doesn't mean it caused it. So it is kind of legitimate if someone says, whoa, didn't this guy, have this thing, didn't this guy do this thing because of something you did? And it's like, well, I don't know. At the end of the day, the guy did the thing because he chose to do the thing. There is a way in which you kind of have to take responsibility. I especially with taking your own life, I feel like at the end of the day, that is your choice. Very few things can be qualified as forcing someone to do that, unless you are making someone's life so terrible that you're okay, actually, I get why it is this person thought that was the only way out. But to say the after effects of it, you can say that you were an asshole and you made that person's life worse, but at the end of the day, if that person chose to take their own life, they chose to take their own life. That's the reason it happened.
They are the basis of much of what is in the DSM-5 on gender dysphoria. Funny, right? It's not that the studies aren't
again,
useful,
what's weird about
but that
this,
they haven't...
What's weird about this is, again, are gender critical people massive fans of the DSM-5? It's really funny to me that these people will literally hit you with every single major medical organization agrees with the trans thing. We have all the backing of the science, but then you get guys like this who will actually go kind of the opposite way and be like, no, actually, the medical science is absolutely terrible. We are in total opposition to the medical science because the medical science... Or, we are. Obviously, this guy doesn't seem to identify as trans. But, we're in opposition to the medical science because the medical science has all of this terrible stuff going on. It's kind of an interesting vibe because I'm like, well, Okay, you want to disagree on the science, then I'll agree with you too. But it's actually not that the science is super pro-trans to a fault. Sorry, super anti-trans to a fault. Very much the opposite. Should have got a corner there and I didn't.
Attributed to society. The basic problem with these studies is simply their age, and therefore they're wrong. Definitions, methods, and treatments. No, more than that.
Wait, hold on. I don't know if he's like saying. Sorry, I wasn't quite. This happens when you kind of pause in the middle of something. I can't tell if he's saying this is what he thinks or if this is what other people have said. Because I would be like, if the only argument is that this stuff is bad because it's old, then obviously that's not a very great argument against the entire idea. Because you'd be like, well, we've moved on. But I think maybe he's saying this is something, a wrong idea people have that doesn't go far enough. I'm guessing.
The whole philosophy regarding gender has shifted. To put it into perspective, the Money and Russo follow-up was written only 5 years after women got the right to have a bank account in the US. Female genital mutilation first became an offense in the UK.
He is basically just saying, the problem is it's not... Oh, that was an annoying offside. The problem is it's, they were wrong back then, but now they're right. Like, that's unironically what you're saying. Like, these people were terrible, but actually, don't worry, because then they all became trans-affirming. Even though he also literally said that this is the base of much of the DSM-5, which is the contemporary version of the diagnostic manual, so he seems to have just contradicted himself there. But yeah, either way, contradiction or not, his argument seems to be, yeah, don't worry everyone, they were terrible, but now it's all fine. Was that another offside? I mean, that was a pretty harsh offside. Like, it didn't even get to anyone.
In 1985. 10 years later, it was also prohibited in the US. Marital rape was legal in the UK until 1991. Gender has shifted. What was once people lost to history became a medical miracle, which turned into medicalization, transforming to pathologization, fetishism and deviance, transvesticism to transsexualism, then to gender identity disorder, deviance to fetishism and back again, people no one understood because no one listened, to gender dysphoria. And who wrote this history? Rarely the ones it's about. It's impossible to read the now decades-old documents and studies and not get the sense that those...
I will say this, I personally haven't read any books on transgender history, not by people who claim to be transgender. So, maybe it is the case that people who aren't trans have written history books, but it's kind of funny to be like, yeah, nobody who isn't trans people haven't been able to write their own history. It's like, I've really not seen any trans-critical history in detail of the trans experience, whereas I literally own a book about the history of, trans people written by trans people. So, yeah, it seems a bit weird. Okay, cool.
Those doctors were on the floor scrambling for routes to answers they themselves put together and reasons for roadblocks they made up. Where once doctors asked children to undress, expect genital arousal, and ask about their sexual proclivities,
now it's the trans activists doing that. Like, that's the thing. Are you genuinely saying, like, now nobody ever has inappropriate conversations with kids about sex? And it's like, your side is literally the side that does that, dude. Sorry, I need to actually move my headphones over to the other side. Because I naturally reach for here to pause and unpause, and it keeps throwing me off.
That's stop. Some clinicians have turned instead using implicit response testing or, just asking the children and actually listening. In the present day, most doctors don't, or at least agree on not treating transness. Steps have been taken to depathologize the trans condition, but those 4 old sources are all proponents of some sort of conversion therapy. Even though Zucker acknowledges himself in the 1995 book that behavior and psychotherapy haven't been totally proven in its effectiveness. We should not lean on those who have proved to hurt those they claim to help. I'm not gonna stay on this topic, but take someone like James Cantor, who makes himself out to be an expert in transgender issues. He has testified in court about 12 times regarding transgender healthcare. By the way, okay,
to clarify a point,
sometimes
another guy, and if I'm not mistaken, James Cantor has gotten... And look, I'm not going to kind of get into all of this drama myself, but James Cantor has been criticized by some people for being, one, too pro-trans, basically arguing for the importance of helping people with gender dysphoria in a way that involves affirming their gender identity. But also, he's been accused of like some pro-pedo stuff. But again, you've got this thing of like actually one, and unless I'm mistaken, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure James Cantor's gay. So again, you have this thing of like gay men who are actually kind of pro-trans by the standards of the time. It's just they're more interested in medicalizing it. And they're the only example he can give of people who have had this kind of, well, I assume he's going to try and talk about how this guy has apparently got some dodgy views on like pedo stuff. We'll see.
For minors. So he should be. Well, he's a specialist in pedophilia, but gender identity? No. Not in my opinion. And I'm not the only one. And I don't know, man, after reading his 1,000-page deposition, he seems like a fraud to me. He doesn't even work with children. There are a bunch of these so-called experts, with which I allege people who go out of their way to harm children and adults. They should not be taken seriously. These...
Again, I mean, to clarify a point, like, being an expert isn't really worth that much. Like, I'm not an expert, but I could run circles around this guy on the question of, is trans identity valid? Of course, this guy hasn't mentioned anything about whether trans identity is valid. So, being an expert isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Men and women still are not up with the times, sometimes deliberately so. Yes, some of them pioneered a lot of knowledge when it comes to transgender people, but the thing is, most of these things are not useful anymore. They're false. The principles governing the science really weird, they made up.
This is not a criticism of the anti-trans movement. So much of this is a criticism of the people who used to be pro-trans, the people pushing a lot of the ideas we have of trans identity right now. And it's like, that is not really the gender critical movement. You know, this would be like a Christian making a video about how much they don't like atheists, and the whole video is just arguing against, like basically arguing against Gnostics or something. And it's kind of like, you're not really criticizing atheists there. You're criticizing a version, or essentially a different version of your religion. That, you know, let's say, obviously I wouldn't say Gnostics and Christianity are the same religion, but certainly from an outside perspective, two things, or two very related religious points of view, and you're acting as if you're actually making a criticism of those who reject the entire religious ideas you have.
No one but those still stuck in the past, too far up their own ass to accept that their life's work has, in the end, brought more harm than good, are still using the faulty theories laid out by Zucker, Bradley, Bailey,
so
Blanchard, Green, Money, Rikas, and the lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. No, it's like this really stupid notion that, like, because you think about it, okay, most people who have a problem with trans identity, like trans identity, it's discussed on like the news. Do you think that some random news anchor has an opinion on these obscure scientists and their theories? No, like that's the thing. What he's talking about is totally detached from the actual attitudes and even the kind of frame of reference for most of the people who could be considered transphobic. Even, I mean, like, just to take the obvious example, and I think, by the way, the Republicans literally passed in the House a bill that's made so-called gender-affirming care illegal. You know, that was passed recently. And do you think they were all sat there going, yep, this is exactly what that James Riker or whatever wanted? No, like, it has nothing to do with it. This whole, what all of these random scientists thought about the trans thing is not relevant. So yeah, I just don't know. Yeah, it's just so stupid.
Say about them is that if they aren't already dead, they're old.
Chapter 13. Munchausen. There were fears more widely that in some instances the family seemed more invested in transition than the young person themselves.
Munchausen by proxy, or as we now call it, factitious disorder imposed on another, was first introduced in 1976 by June Valvas and John Money. Small world. Derived from Baron Munchausen, a fictitious character based on Hieronymus Friedrich. It doesn't matter. What matters is how it, in theory,
works. June and John coined the term as a way to describe reversible hyposomatotropism, dwarfism, induced by abuse. The study examined 2 families who abused their children, and this might be in the case of verbal or physical abuse such as scolding, shouting, hitting, or dietary restrictions. And this then manifested itself in the children as a lack of mental ability and stunted height. When the children in the study were placed in a recovery center, however, all symptoms of abuse subsided. Munchausen syndrome is making yourself believe that you have a disorder to the point where you show signs of the disorder. When it's by proxy, it's inducing a fake disorder in another person, though the symptoms are just similar enough or identical to the real disorder. Munchausen by proxy is child abuse. I've seen this theory pop up here and there. Sometimes it sticks and then it fades out, only to resurface again 5 years later. One study that shared a lot is by Susan Coates. It tried to correlate how mothers of boys with gender identity disorder had a higher chance of showing borderline personality disorder symptoms. In the study, they make it sound like the mothers forced, or at least induced, cross-dressing in their children. So, is that the case? Does parental negligence or abuse make kids trans? Any trans person should be able to see the irony in this. First of all, borderline personality disorder is not the same as Munchausen by proxy.
Well,
Second,
yeah, sorry, of course, because unless I'm stupid, isn't Munchausen by proxy what the child experiences? So unless I'm like, maybe I'm being really stupid there, but I thought Munchausen by proxy was what was experienced by the person who is being abused. The point is, it's the BPD. I'm gonna have to look this up in a moment, but yeah, it's the BPD is what's motivating the abuse. But yeah, the BPD isn't the symptom of the abuse. Oh, please let me score. I'm going to be really annoyed if I don't score. Oh, no? Okay, well, you got a corner. I'm going to lock in. Okay. Oh, we got to do this. Come on, come on. I don't know why I haven't bought on a sub. I should. Ah, fudge. There we go. Ah! This is terrible. Bit confused, no one has showed up, but I think sometimes the thing just doesn't let people know I'm here, which is sad, but you know, I'll live. Right. Let's bring on a right back and a left back. Let's see.
Only 25% of the mothers with children with the GID showed clinical levels of borderline. Not 53% as stated here. That refers to the number of mothers with either depression or borderline. Third, Susan Coates, the author of the study, helped to write the DSM-4 section on gender identity disorder. She worked together with Zucker to develop the disease models we, for some reason, still use today. She believed people who were gender non-conforming suffered from a great mental disorder, and then she helped make that belief a reality. Fourth, what's considered borderline today is not the same as borderline from the 80s where the DSM-3 was used.
Right, let's look this up. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'll wait until we get to the highlight reel so you can watch the highlights. Oh, I ate some food, now I've got that thing where my stomach gets uncomfortable from having eaten food recently.
Was an identity disorder, you'd probably be considered to have borderline personality disorder if you were unsure about your gender. The diagnostic criteria were vague, to say the least. Fifth, the study hasn't been replicated. And sixth, it's sexist. Other than Coates, people like Kenneth Zucker...
Okay, hold on a minute. So your criticism is of ideas that are sexist. Well, in that case, you have to reject all of trans identity because they talk about, oh, I live as a woman. I have the lived experience of a woman, which is entirely just about like this sexist... Oh, please do not let it go in. Good. entirely about this sexist idea of women do this, men do that. If you have the gender role of a woman, so yeah, if you're criticizing sexism, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Michael Bailey and Susan and Marcus Evans have all tried to implant the idea of transgenderism coming from the mother. As I said, Sokka and Coates work together quite a lot. And
Sorry, that is not sexist. Is the genuine argument there saying that there might be some mental health issues that mums have a role in creating uniquely as opposed to dads? Because that's not a sexist thing to say. Obviously, men and women in our society are going to behave differently. Making those observations is not sexist. And observing that because, on average, mums and dads will have different roles, they will behave differently. Yeah, that's not sexist. Okay. Sorry, I don't know if that was an audible burp. Let me ask ChatGPT the situation. Does... Okay, never mind. He was right. Okay, I apologize. I always just assumed that Munchausen by proxy described the person who was made to feel like they were sick. But it turns out Munchausen by proxy describes the person who's making them feel sick. Whatever. Alright. I am glad I looked that up because, I wouldn't want to think this guy was more stupid than I need to. Right. Gonna get chamomile tea. I don't know. Why does my stomach feel so fat? I'll just do a big burp while I'm down there. Charlie Cookie. Yeah, I really can't get over how ridiculous it was to just claim that... Wait a minute. Oh, this is peppermint tea. I meant to do chamomile. Whatever. It's okay. I was just on stupid autopilot mode. I mean, I drink chamomile before bed, I will say. Like, I really don't notice it making a difference. Ever. Oh, I left a bloody plate up here. Whatever. It's all just falling apart. Anyway, yeah. Insane to claim that it's sexist. Where is everyone? I'm sorry, but like it's just very weird because there were a whole load of people here last time. I said like way more than I would have thought, but it's not broken, is it? I said like way more than I would have thought. How many? We got 2 people watching. I don't know. I think like honestly, I genuinely think that there's like some moron in charge of YouTube because it's like nowadays. The amount of times that I don't get notified. There was so I recently made a video about like my most viewed channels, and one of those most viewed, like my second most viewed channel of the year, was this YouTube channel called Tamago247 I happened to be going back through my subscription box really far, just because I was like, oh, what have I missed? I saw he'd uploaded a video, and it just wasn't recommended to me at all. Like I didn't see it anywhere. It's like, shouldn't the YouTube algorithm be non-stupid enough to recognize? Like it's very weird to have something that is able to tell you, hey, this is your second favorite channel of the entire year, but not able to then think, oh, in that case, maybe you like this channel, so we should keep recommending. Maybe it would actually, seeing as you've watched so much of this channel, actually you wouldn't want to miss an upload from this channel. So this should be like the first thing on your suggested viewing. Yeah, absolutely bizarre. But yeah, I get so many comments, people are like, oh, I just didn't get notified. And I can only assume people have not been notified. Like that's the only explanation, because the fact there's only like 2 people here when there were like, I think over 20 people here last time. It's less than a tenth, whatever. I'm not that mad, it's just kind of a bit strange. I'm mad at YouTube. I'm not mad at the reality there's no one here. I'm just mad at the knowledge that this is how YouTube works. And it is kind of scary, right? Because I know for a fact that if YouTube just stopped recommending my videos tomorrow, I just wouldn't have a job. I mean, at the same time, you could say, well, that's how it is of anything, right? Even if you work a stable 9-to-5 wage job, if your boss decides to fire you, whatever. Anyway, yeah, it was really stupid, his whole argument of like, it's sexist because you think that men and women, or that women might do certain things in terms of, you know, people's attitudes, or how they treat the kids, in contrast to men. Women might be inclined towards certain mental health issues that men aren't and stuff like that. It's like, no, that's a pretty well-established fact. There's plenty of observations that are made about that, about how women and men are different. Not better, just different.
Honestly.
And by the way, sorry, I should also clarify, also not necessarily intrinsically different. I don't think there's necessarily like a gene that causes women to behave a certain way as opposed to some other way. I just think that, you know, women... Yeah, whatever. Oh, fine, I'll go to the press. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
In my opinion, it's just sexist bullshit. Blaming the mother is a psychiatric equivalent of blaming the butler in the murder mystery. It's
clear. Yeah, it is a bit of an old trope, I'll admit that.
Cliché, it's outdone, it doesn't work. Does factitious disorder imposed on another exist? Yes, but to vaguely gesture at a phenomenon and then point to all mothers as the culprits, that's extremely harmful. There are real consequences to this.
Yeah, to clarify a point, they obviously didn't say all mothers are the culprit. Like you've massively exaggerated it, saying like, oh, this is kind of a bit of a trope that's a bit well worn and arguably actually based in some sexism. But again, you can't just declare it sexist. But it might be based in some sexist ideas. That's something that you can say. But saying like, oh no, this is sexist because they're saying all mothers are responsible for their kids having issues because they're just so terrible. Yeah, that's nonsense.
People have been falsely convicted and sent to prison because of the belief that they killed their own child. So how do we know that people being transgender isn't a case of Munchausen by proxy? Oh, well, pretty easily actually. If gender dysphoria is induced by the parents, we should see the symptoms subside pretty quickly when the child moves out. And since the NHS and the DSM-5 claims that there's this 80% desistance rate, We'll come back to this, I promise. For now, I only want to look at if we can find any evidence other than just pilot studies that haven't been replicated. The fact is that there is a lot of parents who do abuse their children. Not because of the lack of gender dysphoria, but exactly because of it. Lack of family support for transgender people is the largest predictor of suicidal ideation. It also leads to poorer mental health, substance abuse.
I think the issue here is it's actually not impossible that the parental abuse could both be the explanation for the trans feelings and why it's not accepted. There's actually no inconsistency there because, again, if like parents hate their kids, the kids might think, oh, my parents hate me, maybe I need to do something or be different in some way in order to get their approval. And yeah, that manifests as them identifying as trans. But at the same time, it doesn't get the parents' approval. The parents are still angry, they still hate it. Yeah, there's no reason to think, even with it being the case probably, that trans like is caused by mental health things, for it to also be the case that the abuse can be a rejection of the trans identity.
And adverse life outcomes, just like it does in all children. But when parents actually support their children, the kids thrive. Levels of depression are equal to those of cis children. And as we saw before, it's not like psychologists and psychiatrists never use the family as reinforcement. But now we are beginning to understand how a support system...
I'm very skeptical of that claim. The kids thrive when the parents support them. I mean, look, I'll be anecdotal. I know some parents of trans-identified children, and those kids just are not thriving. I'm not really into the whole like looking at studies again, especially since this is not relevant to the question of is trans identity accurate. So that's why I don't really care to look into this. But I would be very surprised if that's actually true, that the kids are thriving. Unless every single trans person I've ever interacted with was the child of totally unsupportive parents. But I don't get that impression.
Supports the child. Wow. Really good insights from the last 50 years, guys. Banger. Anyways, the evidence. We looked at RGD earlier, and maybe we can put that under the umbrella of Munchausen by proxy. Then it's called Cybermunch, and I love that word. And safe to say that was bad. Bad evidence. The remaining literature on gender dysphoria by proxy is, how should I put it? Dog shit. And the evidence, even worse. Other than vague anecdotes, I only found one website that points directly to examples of possible Munchausen by proxy. And it's by parents of RGD kids, and they list 2 examples.
Parents' wishes for a child of the other gender. It's hard to believe, but there are many such documented cases. Consider the sad story of Nancy Verhelst.
Yeah, like that's the thing, and there probably are cases like this. There was actually a children's book, literally, about this. I think it was by Jacqueline Wilson, who's a very famous British children's author. And yeah, the story is about this mum who has I think a boy, and wants everyone to believe he's a girl instead. And yeah, like I'm not already getting into plot, but like it is like a thing.
Who was legally euthanized in Belgium after a botched sex change operation. Her parents hated and rejected her because she was a girl, and they wanted another boy. So she tried to become a boy, and when it didn't work, she took her life.
Okay, that's not the whole story. Nathan Verhelst was euthanized in Belgium because of unbearable psychological suffering. Assigned female at birth and born Nancy, Nathan's mother always wanted a boy. But Nathan had friends who loved and accepted him, who were there and who tried to understand. His brothers abused him, and his mother hated him.
She was so ugly. Her death doesn't affect me. I feel no sorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Look, there are just abusive parents. Like, that's kind of the... I will say this, look. I think that it is worth noting that abusive parents gonna be abusive. And... Sorry, I'm about to go do something. But yeah, abusive parents going to be abusive. And to be fair, I think there is an argument to be made that the trans thing is just another weapon in their arsenal. Like, I will say this, I don't think there is any parent who has ever, like, force their kid to become trans or made their child hate themselves so much that they've become trans that like where it would not be a problem then if being trans wasn't a concept. No, obviously it would still be an issue. The thing with the whole trans thing is that you could argue it potentially opens up some avenues that make things worse. But yeah, the big issue with the trans thing, of course, is all the people who are not raised by abusive parents, who are actually raised by affirming parents, but that creates more damage for the child because now they're going to go off and do all this trans stuff and make these life-changing things, alterations to their body and all that. One moment. Sorry everyone, I don't know why I'm so bloated. It just makes me feel really, uncomfortable, which I'm sure you can imagine. And basically what happened is, we had like chips for dinner. I mean, obviously some other stuff. We just had chips as like the side. But I was like, yeah, cool. And I was just like, oh, some chips. Like there were just like a few chips left in the air fryer. And I was like, oh, I'll just have those extra few chips rather than throwing them out. And for some reason, it's almost like that just pushed me over the edge. And now I'm just like, yeah, feeling very discombobulated. But we soldier on.
No doubt and no anger. We have never had a bond between us. Therefore, it couldn't be broken.
I can recommend the documentary called Free as a Bird, which was made about Nathan. Originally, it was only meant to shed light on the journey of Nathan's transition.
Het is niet zo van, oh ja, weet je wat, ik kan er vandaag eens voor gaan om als vrouw door het leven te gaan en we gaan er een keer aan beginnen. Nee, het is niet dat wij een keuze hebben. Ik denk, bij ons op dat moment zijn er eigenlijk maar 2 keuzes. Terwijl gaan we voor de persoon die binnenin ons eigenlijk gevangen zit en die eigenlijk vrij wil zijn, of terwijl eindigt het leven.
Nathan never regretted his gender-affirming surgeries, but he wasn't satisfied either. So when Nathan told the director of his plans to die, the focus shifted to the last week of his life. Nathan didn't try to become a boy. He was 44 years old and died as a man. That parents of ROGD kids did names and misgenders him. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. If you choose to disrespect a man who decided...
It's not disrespectful to accurately describe someone's biological sex. Shut up. Like it's not disrespectful at all. I don't care how dead you are still what would correspond to your biological sex. You're always like, literally like, this video is just 100% this guy talking about totally irrelevant issues, usually related to like you know, how mean these, and I'm saying that like genuinely a lot of them do seem to have been bad, but these like random scientists are, but it's got nothing to do with the criticism of the trans thing. And then the rest of it is him like massively moralizing, like, how could these people actually disagree with trans identity? That means they're so evil. And that's like his entire argument.
To euthanize himself because he never felt loved, felt enough, felt accepted. To not acknowledge that he had power over his life, his gender, and his name. To then...
Well, I mean, he clearly had some power over his life. I mean, he chose to take it, but yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. That's the thing. I mean, I think we can definitely say this guy's decision-making wasn't fantastic, considering that he... oh, sorry, is this a guy or a girl? I can't remember. I guess it's a girl, because he's saying guy. But yeah, like, clearly there was some issues with the decision-making there, no matter what. That's all I'll say. Because people who are making, like, sensible, rational decisions don't take their own life. And, like, I would certainly say that's not a valid decision to make. I mean, was this individual, like, even... Like, what was actually going wrong in their life that they were so... Like, they took life? And also, like, what kind of messed up country is this where you can... Like, what year was this that you could get legally euthanized? Crazy. Gross. No thanks. None of that, thank you.
And go out of your way to hand over that power to his abusers. The people who didn't want him, but who named him. It's fucking ghoulish.
Yeah, fuck
I don't even care if...
Yeah, basically, you're not handing power over to their abusers. If his abuser said 2 + 2 = 4, and he killed himself, she killed herself, because she thought that, like, 2 + 2 = 5, I'm not handing any power over to the abusers, just by saying what the truth is.
It was the abuse that led him to change his gender. I don't care. Nathan said he felt more comfortable as a man. He chose to live like a man, and he chose to die like a man. This isn't the only...
Okay, sorry, to clarify a point, there's no manly way to die. You're actually getting at some really, like, regressive sexist ideas that, like, men should just go to their death bravely or whatever. Like, there's a certain way for someone to die. No, that's not how it works. It's like, you don't die as a man, you just die. Ah! Yeah.
The parents of RGD kids thinks it is. It's just a sad, sad story. Next one. The next one's a doozy, okay?
The mother
my
of a
God.
5-year-old girl
I
sent
do not care. Like, stop talking about these random people.
an email to the divorced father announcing that Jay was transgender and would from then on be considered a boy, wear boy clothing and be called Bridge. Also that she would begin transitioning Jay from girl to boy, and she had discussed this with Jay's school. The mother was found by the courts to be forcing this on the child.
Okay. Horrible.
Yellow.
Anyway, let's look at the court documents, shall we? I'm just going to call them mom, dad, and child. Mom and dad were married twice. During their second marriage, she got pregnant and gave birth in 2005 to see their child. As the parents got their second and final separation in 2006, dad didn't appear at the hearing regarding custody, and therefore mom got sole custody over the child. The next 5 years comes and goes, and in 2011, mom sends dad an email telling him their child is trans. Alright, so stories match so far. Dad calls mom into family court. In court, dad tells how the child was with him for 5 weeks during summer break, and he didn't notice any signs of gender
Hey Jew, good to have you here.
dysphoria. His sister testifies a similar story. Happy girl, happy world, fine with wearing girls' clothes, but not a girly girl. The same story is heard from dad's parents. A girl who didn't like frilly clothes, but a girl nonetheless. The court appoints a doctor to make a clinical evaluation of the parents. The doctor explains how dad has ADHD, but otherwise nothing major. Mom, on the other hand, shows signs of anorexia, bulimia, and bipolar disorder. According to mom, these are all under control. The doctor didn't find any support for the diagnosis of gender identity disorder for the child, and that while mom didn't meet the criteria for Munchausen by proxy, she did have striking similarities with that diagnosis. Then mom herself testifies. She explains how dad didn't help during pregnancy and childbirth and how he had a drug and alcohol problem. One night he came home, shouted at the crying child and shook the crib it was laying in. Mom took the baby and sought rescue with her friends, where she stayed for more than half a year. She found an apartment, but when she was laid off of her work, she was forced to move back to her parents. And the dad didn't see the child during this time, even though he was invited. The mom could not for the life of her get her child to wear girls' clothes, so her parents recommended her to go to an art therapist they knew.
There's literally no such thing as girls' clothes. I can't imagine it. Like, I genuinely can't imagine being so messed up that I'm even at a point in my life where I'm noticing that my child isn't wearing girls' clothes. Like, I would just... what are you dressing your child in? If I had a girl, I'd be like, hey, do you want to wear a dress? No. Okay, fine. In that case, we'll just put you in jeans and a t-shirt, because that's a perfectly fine thing for a girl to wear. Like that, and that's the issue, right? Because these people, they, like, you talk about the whole, like, Transhausen whatever by proxy thing. I'm going to do a discrete burp. I'm doing some stretches because my shoulders are so tight. I don't know why. I genuinely I'm like trying to have a fun time playing a game, but I'm like actually in pain. Yeah, I feel like it's always like one thing feeds into the other. Like indigestion feeds into muscle pains, and muscle pains feed into indigestion. Because I always get them at the same time. It's never just like I feel indigested. It's always like I feel indigested and my muscles are really tight. Anyway, but yeah, I just want to say, the trans by proxy thing, it's very hard not to think that's the case when you hear so many stories. Like every single time a trans parent talks about their kid, saying, oh, I really accept my kid, the stories always start the same. Like, we realised I was trans because there was nothing we could do to make them act like a boy. There was nothing we could do to make them act like a girl. And it's like, normal people wouldn't even notice this, because what do you mean? Act like a girl, act like a boy. To be fair, it makes slightly more sense if we're talking about a boy who insists on wearing a dress, because that's actually considered girls' clothes. But a girl just wearing, shirt and jeans, no one would think anything of that. So, well, dungarees, right? But the fact that it's like they were so obsessed with this, because by the way, even if you do have a boy who wants to wear girls' clothes, that is a thing that they could do if they really wanted, and you don't have to then say they're a girl based on that. But what was I going to say? Yeah, the fact you're talking about how badly you were trying to like force them to wear the right clothes suggests that the fact that you were imposing that on them, yeah, actually, that does sound like it was actually a case of you as the parent imposing that on them. That's yeah, to me, you actually are providing evidence of exactly the issue.
Since the child repeatedly stated how they wanted to be a boy, the therapist got the inclination that it might be a matter of gender identity disorder. However, since she didn't have experience in the field, she referred mom to a psychologist. You see, the idea that the child was transgender didn't happen overnight. The psychologist saw the child 5 times and recommended affirming the child's gender without trying to push anything. It was the psychologist's professional opinion that the child should start school as a boy, why they wrote a letter to the school explaining the situation. The mom was so uncertain that she went to get a 3rd and 4th opinion on her child's well-being. The mom states how she really didn't understand the diagnosis of gender identity disorder, thinking that her child was just going through a tomboy phase. She wanted to do what was best for her child with the recommendations given to her by medical professionals. So, she went on to see a specialist with more than 30 years in the field of transgender studies. He sees the child and writes a report stating that, yes, in fact, the child does show signs of gender identity disorder. But the mom lost the case. The court didn't believe that she had her child's best interest at heart, and they found it concerning that she so quickly accepted the diagnosis of such a rare disorder without first questioning the professional's methodology. The court evaluated that mom's actions to continue to get opinions from clinicians clearly do not reflect the actions of a mother distraught over her child being diagnosed with gender identity disorder. She wasn't found to be forcing her child to be transgender, however. They even admit that the child might be or will in the future be transgender, and do not believe that mom
To be fair, what would this guy think if they said, no, there's no possibility this child will ever be transgender? Presumably, he would think that was very unreasonable for them to say. So actually, it's not like that's that. What do you mean they even admit this child could be trans in the future? Yeah, because the alternative would be that they say there's like never any such thing as trans, nobody's ever trans, which is something I would agree with. But that's not something that the courts are saying in any Western European country, because obviously Western European countries all have trans affirmation. So what do you mean like they even go on to say this? It just doesn't make any sense. These guys are like just always having arguments against these ideas that exist entirely in his head. Boston. Okay. Sorry, I should press play. I just don't want to. That's all there is to it. Oh, is this going to be offside? Please don't be offside. Good. This guy's too fast.
Induced Munchausen by proxy. Oh well. Hey, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm just reading a decades-old document. I have no idea whether this was the right choice. I don't know these people. I don't know where they are today, so I can't really answer if it was the right choice.
Damn it.
Except I did find something. I don't know how the American justice system works, so all of this is allegedly okay. I just want to be able to pay my rent at some point. I traced the father back to an old social media profile, and I'm not even sure I'm going to post sources for this, just to, in respect of privacy, for the child, preferably.
I am a Christian conservative. In 2016, I severed ties with the small liberal art.
No, there is no world where I'm having a debate with this guy. Ever. That's not happening. That's just never going to be a thing. I can assure you of that right now. Yeah. No thanks. But, well, whatever. I'll still listen, but I'm not, this guy would not be worth that.
College in my former community of... I could no longer...
What would we even debate?
Continue relationships with godless men, beta males, who judge others based upon their religious convictions and political ideologies.
So, having found this, I dug further. I found his name on some court hearings.
Oh my goodness.
I cross-referenced
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to hit. I didn't mean to hit pause. Oh, come on. Are we gonna pull back? Are we gonna get this? Fuck. No. Okay, wait. Okay, no. It's that defender is really annoying me.
Pictures, dates, and ages, and sure enough, it matches, at least as far as I know. In 2020, during the Black Lives Matter protests after George Floyd's murder, yeah, this is really happening, he tries to drive his car through the crowd of protesters, only to be stopped by police officers. He then propels a can of irrelevant pepper spray into the crowd, wounding 3 protesters and 5 police officers on the way. What? This is so... I don't understand what's being said right now. The protesters was reportedly taken to the hospital as a result of the injury. He's charged with 3 accounts of 4th degree assault and 5 accounts of 3rd degree. He pleads guilty. So I find another report dating 2 years after the original incident. The dad won't serve jail time, it says. In the article, he explains that this was an act of self-defense, that a protester reached into his car and then he sprays the person.
One of the victims, noting her 6 years in practice as defense attorney, said that she has never seen anybody that she believed to be a felon more than D. She called him a dangerous human being and said that he should not own weapons.
Oh, the American criminal and justice system. Oh, the sorry father.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't care why he would make it up. Who gives a crap? Like, this is so tangential.
Oh, the righteous concerns of anti-trans organizations. The mom, on the other hand, went on to work to help transgender people. See what I mean? Kind of sexist. I do have a somewhat dumb hypothesis though. Hear me out. It has been pretty well established that it's usually the mother of the child who goes with a kid to see a physician, psychologist, psychiatrist. When looking at the case studies from the 90s, 80s and 70s, the fathers in the families were often absent or extremely unhelpful with raising the child. So maybe because it's often the mother who shows concern, she also gets the blame. Maybe these women, or most of them at least, were actually just concerned for their children and just wanted the child to be happy, whether that meant therapy or cross-dressing or another gender. Even several decades back, when times should be different, they still defended their children and wanted only a good life for them, whatever that looked like. I have one more story I want to tell. It's not nice, but I think it's worth hearing. And since it's being used against trans people, I also think it's worth telling.
Chapter 14. John Money. Serious content warning on this one. It's the mid-1960s. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated 2 years prior, and the Cold War has gone from a slow simmer to a brawling boil. Cuba is currently undergoing negotiations with the USSR, partially a result of a failed invasion by pigs, an embargo, and a liberal headwind. Just as Juan Marichal hits John Roseborough in the head with a bat, a pair of twins are born 1,500 miles northeast in Winnipeg, Canada. 2 boys to be specific. They were happy and healthy, except for one thing. 6 months after birth, the parents noticed that both boys were suffering from phimosis, a condition where the foreskin is restrictive to the point of pain and stops urination. The boys had to get circumcised. Disregarding ethics, circumcision is usually a pretty minor operation. Following the referral from a doctor, the 2 infants were brought to a surgeon, but everything didn't go as planned. Maybe it was the fault of the doctor. Maybe it was a malfunction. The mother of the 2 children were called in as the surgeon explained how something had gone wrong.
And then the doctor said there has been a slight accident.
Ugh, I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to hear about it.
Featuring in the TV, quick-witted and charming, he showed how he and...
Yeah, I would recommend, if you're interested in John Money, Rubble of Empires has a really good video about John Money. So just look up Rubble of Empires and John Money.
The team from the Johns Hopkins Hospital had been able to transform a man to a woman.
Dr. Money, it's still a pretty drastic procedure, isn't it?
Perhaps the best way to understand it is that it seems no more drastic to them than circumcision.
Maybe there was hope for the child if he was able to be raised as a girl. After all, a boy without a penis seemed hopeless.
The transsexual certainly made an impact. Here's our answer, here's our salvation, here's our hope.
So the parents called in and John Money told them to come immediately. Money was a proponent of gender neutrality, a theory stating that basically all gendered behavior is learned and not something innate to the physical body. It can be altered and coaxed in the first few years of childhood. All nurture, no nature, you might say.
If it was simply a matter of nurture, I could nurture my child into being feminine.
And fun fact, Kenneth Zucker seems to believe that gender can be altered before the age of 10. Wow. Funny fact. But even though Money believed and wrote about his theory, he never actually had the chance to prove it. And now the perfect trial stood before him in the form of twins, Both boys, yet one was to be raised as a girl. The boy was neutered, having his testicles removed, and then it was stressed to the parents that he was never to know about this. Instead, they should raise him as a girl, giving him girly things, using a new name, and making him engage in girly behavior. To me, it seems that the parents only wanted what was best for their children, whatever that might look like. They put their trust in the doctor, and I wonder if you wouldn't do the same. For now, I'll refer to the child
Sorry,
as
just
a
to
girl.
clarify a point. I have evidence for the fact I wouldn't do the same, because the entire medical establishment is saying that trans is totally valid, and I'm disagreeing. Like, that's the great thing about disagreeing with the experts, is that it means when people talk about horrible, disgusting things that supposed experts told people to do, you can know, oh, I wouldn't have done that. Because and notice, by the way, that this guy's whole shtick is saying, oh, the experts were wrong in the past, but now all of the experts are right, and actually the fact that people who are critical of trans aren't experts, that's a massive problem. So he's basically saying, oh yeah, you know, obviously you've got to listen to the experts, but not those experts in the past. They were bad. This guy has no reason to think that he doesn't just support whatever the experts are saying now, even while he, you know, rejects what they did in the past. Because I'm rejecting what the experts are saying now, it means, at least if nothing else, when I'm asked this question, oh, would you go along with what a bunch of evil experts were telling you to do? I can say, no, all evidence suggests I wouldn't.
Or by the name of Joanne, and the twin as boy or John, just to make it easy to understand. Those were also the names they were known as for many years during the study. To enforce the stereotypes of girl and boy, the twins were given different toys and different things to do with their parents. When they were around 5 years old, the father was shaving and John joined in to mimic his dad. Joanne, on the other hand, was told to put on makeup and lipstick with her mother. You know, reinforce gender stereotypes, right? Well, the thing is, Joanne refused. She wanted to shave as well. Moreover, when Joanne was brought a dress, she would rip it off and didn't want to put it on at all. No, she wanted to do the things that boys do. This is from an article by Milton Diamond interviewing Joanne in adulthood.
There were little things from early on. I began to see how different I felt and was from what I was supposed to be, but I didn't know what it meant. I thought I was a freak or something. I looked at myself and said, I don't like this type of clothing. I don't like the types of toys I was always being given. I like hanging around with the guys and climbing trees and stuff like that, and girls don't like any of that stuff.
But John Money didn't give up. In his mind, it should absolutely be possible to coax a child to be a certain gender. And seriously, content warning, it's really getting bad now, okay? To reinforce the gender stereotypes, the two children were forced to do sexual rehearsals. Joanne was told to go down on all fours, where John, her twin brother, would come up behind her and be instructed to thrust with his crutch against her.
John Money, ladies and gentlemen, the man who invented the idea of gender identity. He coined the phrase. Just, yeah, there he is. That's him on. And look, at the end of the day, I do understand that this guy was not, like, teaching contemporary trans ideology, but it's pretty sus. That's a good point. A girl could also not like dresses and dolls. Yeah, I was going to say, I do wonder to what extent this is a case of confirmation bias, or I suppose the opposite to confirmation bias. Because, like, actually, it wouldn't be... The issue is, if I was shaving... Let's say I had a daughter, and daughter loves her dad, as she should. And then she says, oh, I want to shave like daddy. We wouldn't think anything of that. We'd just go, well, you know, you're not really going to need to shave because you're a girl, but, you know, that's cute. Isn't that cute? We wouldn't think anything of it. But in this scenario, obviously, if the boy who is being pretended to be a girl says the same thing, people say, oh, this must be because he's a boy. Like, I do kind of wonder, like, when you're dealing with the entire lifetime of a child, there probably are going to be situations where you have this happen. So I don't even know about like the validity of all this research, because if anything, this would seem to prove basically gender essentialism. The idea that your gender is just ingrained, that girls naturally want to wear dresses while boys naturally don't. Boys naturally want to shave. Although it's a bit weird because obviously traditionally, like contemporary beauty standards say that girls actually shave a lot more than boys do, just not their face. Although again, it would be that if they did grow hair on their face, it would be their face. But yeah.
Joanne was ordered to spread his legs with his brother on top, and they were 6 years old at this time. On at least one occasion, Money took pictures of them doing this. Money was aggressive and forced them both to strip to do genital inspections on each other.
Ugh!
I want to
It's
make
so
you
gross.
understand what I'm getting.
Yeah, like
now take your clothes off.
I know. See, yeah, I know this story. It's like disgusting. Like I don't even want to. Like again, I don't want to listen to this. If it was up to me, none of this would be being mentioned. I'm probably like, obviously I've said I'm going to upload all of this as a, you know, kind of super ultra mega live stream thing on the main video. Oh, by the way, thank you. Should I pronounce your name Jov? By the way, if your name should be pronounced Jov, tell me, say A. If your name is Djov, say B. If your name is Juvie, if your name is Juvie, then say C. Anyway, I'm going to upload all of this as one massive video on my main channel. I'm going to minimally edit it, but I'm probably going to cut all of this out. The Bible says, I can't remember what it says. It says like something like put just DJ or UV. DJ. Hey DJ. The Bible says put no unclean thing before my eyes. And you know, sometimes I think that's good advice. I don't think people need to be told this. I mean, I don't know. It's worth mentioning John Money was a disgusting creep, but it's just, I don't know, something about like describing it in all this detail, I really don't like it. Like, I'll probably include this stuff so people know that what was just described was some really gross pedophilic stuff being done. But I don't want people to actually hear about what any of that was, because it's horrible.
No. Take your clothes off now.
So, were these guys Australian? Ugh, I'm feeling sweaty. Should I take off my jumper? Am I just too warm? I might take off my jumper real quick. Now they would have heard you say that. I don't know if anyone heard. Look, there's no nice way of saying this, but I just, well, there is a nice way of saying it. I'll say it in the nicest way possible. I just did a toot. You know, I did it while I was busy, you know, putting on my new outfit. See, I don't like this one because unless you can't see the, when you can't see the bottom, it just looks like I'm wearing some kind of weird bib. Like, it doesn't really look very Santa-y. If I'm stood up, you're like, oh, it's Santa. But yeah, anyway. It's Santa. That's what I am. I am Santa.
Argument was that sexual behavior should be learned on top of all the other stuff to really complete the socialization.
Despite the absence of a penis,
like the stupid thing
Joanne
about this is
often tried to stand to urinate.
You don't do this with kids. So it's kind of like the fact he's going to all this effort has kind of disproved his theory, right? His theory was that kids just like will just naturally just go into whatever role they're told to go into. And what he's instead found is that if you try and force kids to go into a different role, they massively resist it. So yeah, basically been screwed over there.
Joanne persisted to such an extent that at school, she was caught standing to urinate in the girls' bathroom sufficiently often that the other girls refused to allow her entrance. Mother recalls the other girls threatening to kill her if she persisted.
Joanne was forcibly put on feminizing hormones, estrogen, from the age of 12.
Do you ever like hear any stories about children and be like, why was I so normal as a kid? It's just like, what kind of like random thing is this where they're just like, yeah, we're just going to threaten to kill this girl. It's like, it makes you feel like everyone else grew up in an insane asylum except for you. You hear all these stories about like kids doing weird stuff. Like, I feel like I remember hearing like stories. I don't know, and then maybe this is just a case of I can't remember it, but like you hear like people who like work with kids and they always talk about like how kids like put their excrement everywhere and just like what this isn't is that a normal thing for children to be doing? I mean, I don't know.
Several times he tried to throw away his medicine, but he was ultimately made to go through a puberty he never wished for. The unwanted puberty brought with it the development of breasts, things he didn't want, so he wouldn't wear a bra. In discussing his breast development with his endocrinologist, he confessed,
I suspected I was a boy since the 2nd grade.
Finally, at the age of 14, Joanne transitioned.
Sorry, it is worth noting, by the way, there is the possibility that for whatever reason that this guy did actually know that he was actually a boy. I'm really running away with it in terms of calls. But yeah, like there is like a lot of reasons. And again, I do not care about this research. This research should not have been done. It's just disgusting, everything about it. But I will say, I don't even know like how valuable it's like when everyone says, oh, you know, oh, the Nazis, we actually learned a lot of research from all the stuff they were doing, or a lot of information. And it's like, I don't know. I've heard people say, no, we didn't. Although I kind of wonder whether those people are just kind of saying that because who would want, you know, it's very kind of appealing to say no, to be the one saying no, the Nazis did nothing good. Let me say that I would also enjoy saying that the Nazis did nothing good, but yeah, I mean, I've heard people say that the scientific research is complete crap from them, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. Because, yeah, I feel like the narrative of, oh, well, actually, you know, they don't tell you that we did learn a lot of very important research. That's the kind of thing people say who like to be nuanced, but obviously, sometimes there are no nuances. Yeah, DJ. How does this make trans valid, by the way? Yeah, exactly. It's like, so, and then John Money forced these kids to do blah, 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 and that's why trans women are women. Okay, cool. But yeah. With that said, I just want to stress, to me, this research sounds like complete rubbish anyway. Like, it doesn't seem like it actually achieved anything. So, you know, unlike the Nazis, no, again, I also assume the Nazis did bad research too. Maybe there are some good people who do good research. But it seems to me like, generally speaking, evil people do evil research and they don't achieve anything. It's kind of like with torture. Like, yeah, torture is evil and you should never do it. But it also kind of seems like it doesn't actually work. So it's like, in a way, you want to have like a morally principled stance against this stuff. And I do have a morally principled stance against it. But it kind of almost like, it's kind of like I almost wish torture did work. So that when I have my morally principled stance against it of, no, even if I knew that torturing someone would stop a terrorist attack, I still wouldn't do it. The problem is that I think I've heard people say that's literally, it's never happened. Because the reality is, and this is like my theory on torture, just to do an aside, but like if someone actually wants to do, because obviously pain is in the brain, if someone really wants to do something, then they are just going to, like, the power of the human will override it. The only time when torture actually works is if the person doesn't really care that much. In which case, torture would be, like there's lots of things that would work. So like, why even do the whole torture thing? But yeah, like if someone's like, oh, I've spent ages planning this terrorist operation. It's gonna, there's gonna be a nuclear bomb that's gonna explode in the center of Manhattan, at this time, and then they get caught by the CIA. The CIA can waterboard them. They can pull out all their fingernails, all their toes, all their teeth, their toes. But yeah, like there is I genuinely believe there is nothing that the CIA or whoever, I mean, let's be honest, it'll be the CIA, could do to that person that would make them be like, oh, okay, you know what? No, I'll just tell you. Because I think the human will's like stronger than that. That's my take. And that's why, again, I'm against torture because even if it did work, I would still be against it. But I also feel like that's why it doesn't work. And apparently, like, what actually works better is, like, they manipulate you. So, like, and apparently the British intelligence is pretty good. Like, the British intelligence, I'm sure they do all sorts of terrible stuff. But apparently they don't torture people. And the reason I can believe that is because it's a case of, they're not like, oh, we don't torture people because we're really good. They're like, no, we don't torture people because we kind of manipulate and lie to people in much more subtle ways. Like the official like line from British military intelligence and Secret Service is, we're on such a deeper level of manipulating everyone and controlling people's thoughts and infiltrating people's minds that we actually don't need to torture people. What we're doing is actually much better. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that I can imagine that might be the case. But yeah, anyway, the point is that just like torture is evil, all of this crap research is evil, and it doesn't work. It hasn't actually achieved anything. And anything it was even trying to achieve wouldn't have really been like a good thing to be trying to do in the first place.
John, but for the first time it was by his own will. John was given male hormone therapy and grew into not just a normal boy, but a handsome man, especially with the help of gender-affirming surgeries in the form of a double mastectomy and a phalloplasty.
As an adult, John was asked, why not accept being a female rather than fighting it? His answer was simple. Basically, he wanted to please his parents and placate the doctor, so he often went along. But doing so didn't feel right, and the confusion between his feelings and theirs he saw was mentally devastating and would lead to suicide if he were forced to continue. The most often voiced and deeply felt emotion expressed by John was always feeling different from what was expected or desired by others. Doctor said, it's gonna be tough. You're going to be picked on. You're gonna be very alone. You're not gonna find anybody unless you have vaginal surgery and live as a female. And I thought to myself, I wasn't very old at the time, but it dawned on me that these people gotta be pretty shallow if that's the only thing they think I've got going for me. That the only reason why people get married and have children and have a productive life is because of what they have between their legs. If that's...
Okay, sorry. Let me say this. It is not... I'm going to give some affirmation to people right now. It is actually not shallow to care about to care about the genitals of your marital partner. Yeah, if someone's been in a horrible accident, then you are being a real trooper. Or maybe you just genuinely don't really care about sex in a way that a lot of other people do. And you're like, yeah, I'm actually going to, get with this person who has some serious genital problems. Yeah, okay, cool. That's your choice. Sorry, I feel like I was going to burp. But yeah, that's not... You're not being shallow if you're like, actually, no, it does matter to me that the person I'm in a relationship with has all of the stuff in the right place. Why did this guy go out of his way to research pedophile stories? It's like almost 2 hours of the video. Yeah, it's so weird. Why call it Transphobia Debunked? Again, I think I've already said this, but like if this video was called like the dark history of... I don't know. See, I was going to say like anti-trans science. Problem is it's not really anti-trans science, so I don't really know what he would say. But yeah, if he was to go out of his way to kind of say that, fair enough. But that's not really what he's been saying, so... I don't know. There's something's amiss, and that's putting it lightly. Let's switch out our center attacking mid for... I feel like I haven't played Sergio Garcia very much, so we'll add him in. And everyone else is fine. We'll bring out this guy, replace him with that. I feel like this centre back has not played very much, so I really feel sorry for him. We'll replace the left back with him. Centre attacking mid, placed with Hare. Hurst hasn't done. I think I've had Hurst. You know, I'll replace the goalkeeper with. You know what? Actually, no. Let's switch. We'll switch goalkeeper, and then if this goalkeeper's not doing so well, we'll switch him out. Yeah, I'll be fine. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
It's all they think of me. That they justify my worth by what I have between my legs. Then I gotta be a complete loser.
The boy grew up and found a loving wife, adopting her 3 children.
I will say this. Like, in my head, it's kind of like, I feel like actually, if you're not a complete loser, you should probably, for the sake of having a very fulfilling sexual relationship, still have genitals. Do you have any idea if this dude knows you've been reacting to him? I will say this. I don't imagine... Well, I don't know. Probably not. I'd kind of hope he doesn't care, because I don't think, it's... Well, yeah, I don't know. I just imagine that he's moved on to other stuff. It would be very sad if he... Well, I don't know. Just because I'm doing it in such a non-committed format, I think I would imagine he kind of doesn't care. Like if I went to the effort of making a full-on scripted video, I think it would make sense to care. But considering this is all I'm gonna do, I feel like he should kind of basically recognize that I don't really care very much, such that I'm doing it in this format, which is such an uninvolved format, Because I do on my Patreon. Oh, that reminds me, I need to post a Patreon thing. But yeah, when I do my Patreon things, I obviously do the kind of live reaction. I don't really edit it, that kind of style, which is, and I obviously don't script it. That's one thing, but this is another level of not really being that involved. These guys are all over me.
In the
I might be a bit
process.
defensive.
His former student, Richard Green, argues that Dr. Money did the best he could in an era when we knew less.
With the benefit of hindsight, based on what we knew at the time about how you become male or female or boy or a girl, with the advantage of hindsight, knowing the difficulties, to say the least, of creating a penis surgically, the decision that John Money made at the time was the correct one, and I would have made the same one at that time.
Then, around 35 years after the incident with the botched circumcision, his brother died to suicide. 2 years later, John got divorced, and 2 days after the divorce, he committed suicide as well. We don't know exactly why.
It's always women. These women, these shallow women, just divorcing guys just because they don't have it. It always reminds me. Oh, look, this is all serious and stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm still gonna make a joke about it. It's like in that Simpsons episode where Professor Frink, is from a Halloween episode, he brings his dad back to life using Frankenstein technology, and he's he basically has to kind of replace him with robot stuff, and he's like, oh, we had to replace several vital organs, but that doesn't make you any less of a man, except you don't have a penis. There we go. So that's my line. But no, yeah, look, at the end of the day, this is sad. Having said that, it's also one of those things where I know the reality is that there is a huge problem with guys becoming suicidal after divorces, which is why you got to be friends with dudes. It's kind of crazy. Just I got an advert from the Church of Latter-day Saints, and it was like, hey, are you new to I was gonna say new to a new town, but are you in a new city? Do you not really have any friends? Blah blah blah. You should come to church. I was like, to be honest, actually, I would say don't become a Mormon, but yeah, actually, that's a really good reason to go to a church. It's basically just immediate free friend group right out the gate. So even in that case, I'm saying right now, I'm not saying you should become a Mormon, but certainly you shouldn't become a Mormon based on the belief that Mormonism is true. But if you were just looking at it from a making your life materially better situation, I would say if you're a guy and you get divorced, you should probably just go to some kind of religious thing. You know, it can be like, again, I don't think Catholicism is true, but I'm saying if we're just ignoring the question of whether it's true and we're just focusing on that, I was like, actually, you know what? That's a pretty good advert for Mormonism. Like, pretty much the advert was in so many words saying the main point of coming to this church is just that it means that you will have a bunch of friends when you're very new to a place and you probably want friends. So you might as well come to our church. I was like, yeah, that's probably the best sales pitch you can do. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because a lot of guys, it seems like one of the main reasons guys kill themselves is because loads of guys don't really have friends. And like, let me tell you, like the amount of friends you get just from going to church. And again, I really don't want to, like, if you're going to go to church based on, like, if you care about truth, you should go to a church that you think is actually making correct claims about reality. But if I am permitting myself to talk about the material benefits to your life, the fact that it's just like every other week they're like, hey guys, we've got like a men's group, there's a men's barbecue, the guys are going bowling together, you know, check out the WhatsApp group, there's loads of dudes hanging out being dudes. Like, yeah, that's pretty hard to say no to if you're like struggling with loneliness. Not me though. I'll never be lonely because me and my wife we're a solid rock. But you know, we are. It's true.
But we can't ask him. But I'd like to quote Judith Butler's postscript to their chapter on this incident in Undoing Gender.
Judith Butler. That's a controversial mention. That guy made a response to me about Judith Butler, and then things happened.
The norms governing what it is to be a worthy, recognizable, and sustainable human life clearly did not support his life in any continuous or solid way. Life for him was always a wager and a risk, a courageous and fragile accomplishment. Can I come to a satisfying conclusion on this story? No. I didn't live his life and I can never understand. All I've seen are remnants of a distant life in the form of black pixels on a brightly lit computer screen, making up a few pages on an outdated website. Then why do I think this is an important story to tell? Well, the story has gotten a lot of attraction from certain people just asking questions about the history of mainstream gender theory. As if this was something wokies were trying to suppress. But no, bucko.
Again, so just for the record, I'll be interested to see whether this guy is going to acknowledge that John Money coined the phrase gender identity, which again does not necessarily, like, you can make an argument that trans identity is not really what John Money was getting at. You can say that, but it just seems weird to not even mention the fact that he did come up with a lot of your core vocabulary. Oh. Especially considering how much guilt by association you've been doing. You know, if some like pedophile came up with one of the core terms for gender critical people, I feel like that would be something worth mentioning. And I mean, to be fair, he did mention it, I guess, because the thing I'm thinking about is like autogynephilia, I guess, was come up by Ray Blanchard. And he has said, well, the thing is, I don't even know. I don't think he actually was able to show any evidence that Ray Blanchard did anything like pedo-y, just that some people he knew. So yeah, either way, there's a less direct connection. And of course, you can disagree with trans identity and still not believe in autogynephilia, whereas you can't really support trans identity without believing gender identity is the thing.
No, honey, it's pretty well known how horrible much of queer history actually is. The only reason they point to this story is to be able to say, oh, see, transgenderism shouldn't be practiced, it doesn't work, sex is immutable. But they don't notice the forest for the trees, because even though this story is well known and widely cited in history in different literature on gender, I mean even in a Norwegian kjønnsinkongruens manual I read just for fun, it's far from rare.
So, sorry, since when are Norwegians writing North Korean journals? Because, like, what the hell was that? I was like, genuinely, and this is not me being racist against Chinese people or North Koreans or whatever, because this is me, I guess, doing an impression of a Norwegian saying the name of a Norwegian journal. But what I genuinely heard there was, even the name of a even the name of a Norwegian, Yang Chang Shuang Shuang. Like, that's literally the exact words that just came out of his mouth. I need to go back and hear that again. That was the most...
In different literature, well known and widely cited in history in different literature on gender.
I have not been looking at this guy's face very much. He does some really interesting faces. He's got like a very wide head. That's how he talks.
I mean, even in a Norwegian kjønnsinkongruens manual I read just for fun, it's far.
That's an absolute China of himself. What are you... Why does he just randomly become...
Norwegian kjønnsinkongruens manual.
That almost seems like it was dubbed.
Gender, I mean, even in a Norwegian kjønnsinkongruens manual.
Wait. That's like... What is... I don't know why, I just find that so funny, because I was like when I hear someone say like something about Norway, I'm expecting him to, you know, say a Norwegian sounding word in a Norwegian sounding accent, not the most Chinese sounding sentence in what sounds like a jokey Chinese... Like, I'm not crazy, right? Like, it sounds like he's doing a Chinese accent there. It's like, even in a Norwegian... Anyway. I don't know. I have no idea what those words were, and I don't care. I just found that funny.
Read just for fun, it's far from rare. It's not about the immutability of sex and the evils of one particular doctor. It's also about the thousands of trans people experiencing the very same thing this very day. It's not about forcing a child to be trans. It's about forcing a child to be something they're not.
YouTube short for the main channel. I don't know. I don't want people to think I'm racist, but... I mean, again, it's not racist. Because it's not racist to point out. I literally had... we ordered a Chinese... And this time I'm actually going to make fun of a Chinese guy, but it's okay. Because I'm kind of going to compliment him. I called this, like, Chinese restaurant... I don't know, like, I had, like... This isn't even racist either. But I did have a thought of, like... You know, I was calling this restaurant. I was like, you know, I kind of hope this is going to be a situation where, you know, this guy is going to be able to understand English, which is like, that's like, I don't know. It's partially, to be fair, it's partially because I recently had a call with my dad on the phone where he said that like the signal was really bad, so I was worried my signal was going to be bad. So I was worried like that in combination with then the guy maybe English isn't his first language. Anyway, but then so shame on me because I pick up, I call him and this guy answers and he has genuinely like perfect, like full on like BBC received pronunciation. He's like, hello there, welcome to the Chinese place, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, cool. And like, I ordered my stuff, you know, what I wanted. And then at the end, when the guy, hello Eagle Vision, and hello Sonar Poop, and hello Captain Alexa, and hello Kermit the Frog, when the guy read back read back my order to me, he suddenly just like, said it all in like a really Chinese accent. So it was like the whole conversation, yeah, okay, absolutely. So no, don't worry, we can do that. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, that's a very good choice. And can I just confirm your order? It's sweet and sour pork. And like genuinely, I'm not kidding. Like it was such a like, I was like, what are you? That was like very strange. And I was like, is this like a bit? I don't know. That was an incredible goal from outside the box. Oof. We're naughty. Anyway, but again, like in that situation, I was just like, I didn't even. And I told my wife about it. I was like, that was weird. I was like, he was so, and then like we got there and it was the same guy, and again he was white. That's not true. No, he was Chinese, but yeah, he just continued to speak in his received pronunciation similar to me. But yeah, that was very funny. Anyway, what were we saying? Oh no, look, I will say that. Like this whole, I don't know how great this whole like John Money experiment thing is as an argument in itself against the trans thing, because yeah, it basically does sound like this guy was forced to pretend he was what he wasn't, and you could say, well, obviously the difference with trans is they aren't forced to pretend they're what they're not. They are pretending they're what they're not, but they're not forced to. So, yeah, I don't really think it's an argument against that. It would be an argument if the point of trans was that there are kids who are constantly insisting that they are girls, but we're telling them they're boys. But that's not what's happening in most cases. There are maybe some cases where the parents are pushing it, but yeah, it's not really a thing. Hey, this guy's name is Windass.
It's incredibly ironic to use this story of John, Joanne, then John again as an example of the evils of trans ideology. Those people are either willfully lying or just painfully, dreadfully stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't use it for that that evidence, or sorry, I don't use it as an argument against the trans thing for the reason I just said. But again, I will point out that John Money did pioneer. But again, I don't even use that as like a massive argument because it doesn't really matter. It just, one, it kind of is worth bringing up. Two, it's interesting considering how much trans activists love to do guilt by association in general, because that is one of their main arguments. And three, it's definitely worth bringing up considering how much this guy in particular loves to do guilt by association.
I didn't like dressing like a girl. I didn't like behaving like a girl. I didn't like acting like a girl. I'm not a professor or anything, but you know, you don't wake up one morning deciding that you're a boy or a girl. You just know.
Chapter 15, Desistance, Part 2. Thanks for sticking with me through that small detour. Only took, an hour and 15 minutes. You remember that this was about one paragraph from one source, from one...
Yeah. So that's kind of annoying, actually, to do that, to bring up all of this irrelevant stuff. There's a point at which there's kind of overkill. And sometimes, you know, it can be worth going into stuff in detail. But the problem is, you're not really... This is like, it's kind of funny... Because something I've said many a time is that it's not really that fun responding to responses if they're responses to someone else. And, you know, like there was a channel I found recently someone mentioned that's kind of like a pro-trans channel, but all of their content is responding to other people, which obviously is not that interesting for me because a lot of the people they respond to are conservatives. They're just not pro-trans. Sorry, they're not gender critical. And there just wouldn't really be much point in responding. And, you know, it's just an issue you get all the time. And, you know, the reality is it sometimes means you have to kind of just push through and sort of say, well, even though I'm not really making this argument myself, this is what I think about it, whatever. Yeah. I just feel like... I felt like this was going to be a sentence. Yeah, basically, that's kind of the problem with the fact this guy is mostly just responding to other people's content. It's like, that's not really, you know, I'm not about that. That doesn't affect me. And therefore, I don't care, because I'm not vouching for these people as especially authoritative. Left mid. Let's bring on Straker. Oh, I did want to bring on that centre back, but I think it's too late now, because, wait. Yeah, there's just no use for that centre back is the issue. Anyway.
Claim from Time to Think how history has shown that these children aren't really trans, but gay. Hannah Barnes gave 3 sources for the high desistance rates. The first source was from England's National Health Service, which relies heavily on old studies. Studies in which the children are coerced, ridiculed and beaten into viewing their experience as a delusion. The second source was the 5th edition of the DSM, which is also based on the very same old studies and headed by a person dubbed Enemy Number 1 to Transgenders, Kenneth Tucker, who was often the one responsible for the studies. The third and final source is a critique of methodological flaws of some of the newer studies. No. That's wrong, because the source that Barnes links to is not the actual critique, but instead a reply to the critique. And can you guess who wrote the reply? Yeah, it's Kenneth Tucker, of course it is. Let me make this very clear. When you hear anyone...
I'm not gonna lie, I do not remember who Kenneth Tucker is. I'm sure he was mentioned, but yeah. I already forgot what his arguments are because it's so scattered. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, so that will be the end of the. Oh, you know what? I had some pretty concentrated goals. Let's watch the highlight reel. Here it is. Got a miss, and then save. Yep, good save. Solid save. Goal. Here it is. Boom. Save. Goal. I feel like I often score goals like that. Foul, and then based off that foul, goal. Yeah, that was the one outside the box that was very lucky. After that, I should have brought on some more people to have them run around. I should have given because basically what you want to do is you want to give kind of the worst players in your team some time to run around, get some experience so that they become better players. But the problem is, you don't want to have your worst players playing when it really matters. So considering I was 3 goals up, I really should have brought on just all of my worst players at that point, and I didn't. That was kind of stupid of me. Anyway, did you finally win a tournament? No, well, I got knocked out of a tournament. I don't even know what tournaments I'm still in. I'm not sure how I actually find that out. Yeah, look at that. Oh, 9 shots, 8 on target, 54% possession. Yeah, we're doing well. Anyway, let's see. So yeah, we're in the football league, but that's you know how it works. That's not a tournament. It's the football league. So I don't actually know how many matches there are in the football league, but and then I think if I go to season, other leagues. Wait, so is this leagues I'm in? Calendar? Okay, calendar. We'll look at calendar. So okay, so we were in a cup match against Sunderland, but they knocked us out. So we're out of that cup match. I don't know if you have any other cup matches. Let's see. Oh, so let's see. Okay, there we go. So so we're in the what? What is that? The Junior Paint Trophy. Okay, so we'll hopefully win that because that seems pretty weak sauce. And then the Emirates FA Cup. All right, that's the big one. So the FA Cup is kind of one of the actual major tournaments. So we'll have to lock in for that. And then I think all of the rest of the ones are kind of like based on how well we're doing. All right, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, we're doing okay. So how many games are there this season? There are quite a few games this season. Wow. Okay. Anyway, all right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all next time. I don't know when. I mean, obviously, it's kind of wild to me we're as close to Christmas as we are. And obviously, when we get to Christmas, there's going to have to be, in the interest of not looking like a complete sad sack, I'm going to have to ease off this stuff a bit. But